I am so happy to see every single one of you. You just don't know. Welcome to our day of action here for the League of Women Voters. So the League of Women Voters of North Pinellas County joins hundreds of leagues all across the country today to commemorate the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. He said it's on.
It's for the camera. It's only for the camera.
Yeah. I think I'm loud enough. So yes, hundreds of leagues today are commemorating the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but they are not only commemorating the signing, it's a day of action. So leagues all across the country are doing different things, and we are going to step back into history, have it connected to the present to give us a call to action for what we need to do, and we'll do that with our speaker in a little bit. But first of all, for those of you who I have not met, I think I know almost everybody here, but for those of you I've not met, I'm Tanya Landry. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters here in North Pinellas County. And so 106 years the League has been working on empowering voters and defending democracy. And that's a long time. And so there's some fights that we thought we'd never have to fight again, but here we are. And so for those of you who don't know, the League is a nonpartisan, means we do not endorse political parties, we do not endorse candidates. Some people find that hard to believe, but it's very true. We are political in the fact that we do advocate for issues to expand and protect voting rights and issues that are important to voters and to give voters the ultimate choice. So that is where we are political. So before I go on any further today, I just want to make sure that I introduce the folks who put this event together. And so we have Jackie Farrell standing back there, our membership committee. And Jackie, and then, of course, Beth Hoven, who Beth sees the opportunity for this. This is part of the Florida Humanities Speakers Bureau, and she kept saying, we have to do this, we have to do this. And so Beth, along with Gayla Larson, worked on they worked on the application to make this event happen, and we are so happy and thrilled that you did. And so also I want to recognize, I don't have any of our education members here today, I don't see any, but they will be busy at work because school is back in session, and the Education Committee goes to every single school board meeting. And then they also are part of ICROC, which is the Independent Citizens Referendum Oversight Committee. And that is the committee making sure that the referendum dollars are spent the way they're supposed to be spent. And in addition to that, the education will be very busy. They have a Why Vote video competition they're going to be doing in high schools this year. And they will also be working on peer-to-peer voter registration. And that is something that we're really excited about. Difficult time here in Florida. There are other states that do quite a bit with their high schools. Here, it's a much slower process, much slower than I would like, certainly. But we will keep at it. So that's what the Education Committee will be doing. Voter Services, last but not least, they are the workhorse right now of the entire organization. I mean, just clap for this committee. I mean, they have been, it's crazy right now. They have been out in the community. You've probably seen us. We've had at least 14, 15 events since the last time we had a membership meeting. We have so many more events on the books from now until the sprint to the general election for November 3rd. And so, as my grandmama would say, Lord, send in the laborers. We need help.
Yes.
We need help. And so if you have a half hour to spend or an hour to spend, please let Jackie or Suzanne and Mary Giordano, let them know that you're available because we do need the help. We don't want to turn away community organizations that want us to come out. We want to do that. And in order to do that, we need more people. So Mary sends out a link about the events that are coming up and where you can register and sign up for events. So no slot is too small, If you could do 15 minutes, it might mean that somebody can go to the restroom, and that's appreciative, okay? So that's very important. So 2 things I'd like for you to leave here from us today, and one is Vote 411. How many people are familiar with vote411.org in here? Okay, great, great. And so your assignment today is vote 411. You'll look at your phone and 5 friends, identify 5 friends or neighbors, or maybe you don't even like these people, I don't care. You're going to make sure they know about Vote 411, okay? We have a video on our website. It's a short video. It's a fantastic video because it's short, it makes the point, and it's easy to understand. And if you have young people in your lives, that's a perfect video for them who are not really accustomed to voting. They don't know how to get factual information. And that is what the League does well. We do factual information. So Vote 411 is your homework. Second piece of your homework is 10 more days to the August 18th primary. I mean, it has been a sprint. After that, we take a quick sigh, and it's on to the general election, right? And so here's the other part of your assignment. The general election is huge in the state of Florida. We know there are serious offices, and we know we need voter turnout. So your assignment is, it's going to be crazy. This administration has already shown us that there are continual challenges to vote by mail, to elections process. It's going to increase. After this August primary, we are going to see this administration ramp up its efforts to get rid of elections. So your assignment is to block out the noise, block out the distractions, keep your eyes on the prize, and that is to make sure that you vote and everybody in your circle votes. That's your second assignment. So we know it's going to be tough. It's going to be challenging for this November election, especially here in Florida. We've seen it, and we haven't seen nothing yet, because I know hard times are coming. But hard times we have faced before, and we know what to do, and our speaker is going to tell us about that. Beth, please come and introduce our speaker.
Thank you. We are honored today to have James Abraham here to tell us about the history of voting rights infractions in our country and the continuation of some of these infractions. I thought for a second on the way over here, if we had equal representation in our political offices, we would have 57% white. The other percentage would be a mix of various other races, but we would have 51% women. So we're not even close, so we've got to vote and got to keep going on this. So James has a long history of writing, editorial writing, lecturing, being a columnist. He worked for the Milwaukee Journal, which I'm from Wisconsin. Anyone else from Wisconsin? You know the Milwaukee Journal, a great paper, absolutely great paper. Tallahassee Democrat, Charlotte's son. He is currently running a business in helping people get their books published, and I'm sure you can talk to him more about that as well. But he's here to tell us what Florida has been like and how hopefully we can change some of the information that we're hearing. So thank you, James.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth, for that wonderful introduction. Tanya, I'd like to thank you for bringing me up here. I see a brother from the Alphas. Thank you, Alphas. I'm honored and so happy to be a part of the commemoration of the 61st anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. Let me get right to my talk then, because it's real long. I don't want to put anybody to sleep, so. 100 years separates Florida Governor Sidney Johnson Katz on the left, a jack-legged, defrocked Baptist minister who remade himself in Florida as a reformer governor and a prohibitionist, from Ron DeSantis, a Yale-educated lawyer who rose from being an insignificant congressman to governor and presidential contender by embracing the tactics and policies of present President Donald Trump. Now, what do they have in common? They illustrate 100 years of voter intimidation based on a sense of entitlement that only certain people should vote, while the rest of us do not have a say in our own affairs. Katz was inaugurated on January 1917. In his inaugural speech, he said, "Your triumph is no less in this good hour in beautiful Florida, for you have withstood the onslaughts of the county and state political rings, the corporations, the railroads, the fierce opposition of the press, and the organization of the Negro voters of this state. Against you and the power of the Roman Catholic hierarchy against you. Yet over all these common people of Florida, the everyday cracker people have triumphed." Notice something here. 100 years ago, this politician was doing the same thing that Donald Trump and his copycats have turned into an art form, labeling those who oppose him as dangerous, as stirring racial and religious hatreds by appealing not to our better natures, but to the devils that live within us all. Now, the nation at this time was going through a period of retrenchment after World War I. Fears of a red takeover reverberated after Russia's royal house was assassinated. Cats like Trump today played on such fears to demonize anyone other than a teetotaling white man. His administration ushered in what one writer called the age of barbarity. Women considered loose or had women who had big mouths were dragged off into the woods and beaten. Blacks were routinely harassed and attacked. A Catholic priest was even castrated here in Tampa for standing up to the Ku Klux Klan. In 1919, Katz publicly labeled black residents as part of an inferior race and refused to criticize 2 lynchings. Matter of fact, he was quoted in the press as saying that only the vagrant, vagabond, worthless Negro is lynched. Now think about that relative to what the Trump administration has to say about our brown brothers, who right now are being hunted and demonized the way we were, and believe me, the way we will be again if we don't do something about it. Katz denounced the NAACP for speaking out against the lynchings. Your race is always harping on the disgrace it brings to the state by a concourse of white people taking revenge for the dishonoring of white women. When if you would teach your people not to kill our white officers and disgrace our white women, you would keep down 1,000 times greater disgrace. In other words, blame the victim. You can relate this almost directly to the recent Supreme Court decision, which if you read it right, it's actually blaming black people for having a temerity to say we want to vote. A fish rots from the top, and Katz' racism and sexism set the tone for 1920s Florida and beyond. Enter July Perry, a respected member of the black community who urged other black people to vote. In 1920, this is in Ocoee, in 1920, after visiting the local courthouse and demanding to vote, July and a few others were hounded. Perry was arrested at his home after an incident. Later, he was dragged from jail and lynched. Rosewood, which was burned to the ground. A quick newspaper article, I'll stop right here. July Perry strung from a limb of tree and shot to death at early hour this morning. Negroes armed show fight. That's the classic thing. We've got to fight back against these armed Negroes. And somehow or other, we wind up getting killed and hung from trees. Perry, Florida also saw its black section destroyed and a black man actually burned at the stake. They tracked this guy down and had a public festival in the streets. Kids, children, standing around watching this poor man get burned to death for something he didn't even do. He was accused of raping a white woman. And we've heard that before. During the 20s, whites completed a movement that had started right after the Civil War, gaining control of the state and destroying any efforts to broaden the circle of power. Just really quickly, Reconstruction ended in 1876, and oddly enough, it was a Republican from the party of Lincoln that did it in. In the election of 1876, the Democrat Samuel J. Tilden from New York ran against Rutherford B. Hayes of Ohio. Two states, Louisiana and Florida, claimed that we have a problem with our ballots. We're not sure about this. Rutherford B. Hayes struck a deal with Southerners that he would get rid of Reconstruction, withdraw the federal troops from the South, if the Southerners made alliance with him. They did so. Samuel Tilden lost the election. Rutherford B. Hayes became president, and we saw the end of Reconstruction. Just another real quick aside. You all saw, who's that fool that just got appointed last night?
Oh, Blanche.
Yeah, Blanche, the Attorney General of the Justice Department, which was created in 1870 to protect the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment to the Constitution. So what Rutherford B. Hayes did when he sold out black people was bring all the black troops that had been stationed in the South to make sure that black people weren't harassed. He brought them home. And you can imagine what happened next. Black voter registration was discouraged, and soon the state returned to its pre-Civil War balance of power, with decision-making in politics restricted to the northern tier of counties. Politics stagnated into races between white men only. That's a shot of Rosewood, by the way, one of the few remaining foundations. And if you know, the descendants of Rosewood, with some good academic help, was able to finally win reparations from the state. Oh, you can't hear me? I'll speak up a little bit, okay? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Politics stagnated into races between white men only, as I mentioned. According to Myrna Perez of the Brennan Institute, this was part of a pattern that emerged during Reconstruction after the Civil War. Let me go back a moment. There we go. In response to emancipation, Florida's legislation passed a series of what became known as black codes. What they did was restrict the movement of black people, certainly kept them away from the ballot boxes, but worse, because of a flaw in the 13th Amendment, which outlawed slavery except for penal punishment. States in the South set up chain gangs and turpentine farms. At the time, this was near the end of World War I, the Germans had been sinking so many ships that America and other countries decided to start building wooden ships, which were cheaper, faster to build, but you needed trees and turpentine, what they call naval stores. And so they started rounding up black men on the roads and slapping them into camps like this. This is near where I live. I live down in Charlotte County. And this was a turpentine camp where you were sentenced forever. If you had a 5-month sentence and you did something wrong, like spit on the ground, they'd add another month. This became the largest source of organized labor in Florida until one day in 1919, the sheriff of Leon County, who made a lot of money rounding up these people, rounded up this young white guy on I-10 that sort of runs east and west across the top of Florida. They put him in one of these camps and they beat him to death. Turns out this white guy was connected. His family raised hell so much that the governor had to outlaw this practice, at least publicly.
Oh, what a shame.
Exactly, at least publicly. Okay, I'm gonna try again to get the voice up. Is that good? Okay, I might collapse, but I'll get it done. Okay. Let me keep going here. Hold on a moment. It's either a loud voice or read it right. Constant intimidation and harassment kept black voter registration low throughout this period. Matter of fact, Gaston County, which is the only majority black county in the state, in 1961 it had 12,000 black residents, only 7 of whom were registered to vote. Now, this would change after the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But the Voting Rights Act wasn't a Christmas gift. It wasn't just handed down to us. People died for that right to vote, like right here in Florida. Anybody familiar with Harry T. Moore?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. What a sad story. On Christmas Day in 1951, Harry Moore, the NAACP field director, was blown up in his house with his wife. He was killed for registering black voters and demanding prosecution for racial violence in a state that preferred it to continue. Now, after the Tallahassee bus boycott of 1956 launched just a month after the Montgomery boycott began, it became one of the first successful challenges to bus segregation outside of Alabama. It was led by students from Florida A&M University. When I worked for the Democrat, I met a lot of guys, they were older now, who participated in that, and they're still proud. The bus station has a statue of C.K. Steele. He's the man, the reverend, who led that boycott. Careful observers might see a correlation between better-known civil rights movements and those in Florida. That's because there was. This is where Martin Luther King came to practice. In 1964, King made St. Augustine a deliberate focus of campaign activity. These are some black citizens marching in St. Augustine. And back then, we dressed up to protest. Look like they're going to church. But anyway.
That was in August, though.
Say again?
It was in August. The time of year, it was in August.
It's always August down here. Yeah. But anyway, the point I'm making is St. Augustine was celebrating its 400th anniversary as the oldest city in the United States. King and local organizers saw a chance to spotlight segregation. You had this city with this fine, rich history where black people couldn't even go to a lunch counter. They organized nightly wade-ins at St. Augustine Beach where demonstrators entered the segregated water and were beaten by white mobs while law enforcement stood by and just watched. They were probably some of the worst images of that period because that area was just, North Florida always has been virulently racist. Again, I worked for the Democrat up there, and I remember sometimes I was so scared when I went out on the story. I called my wife and told her, wait up for me, please. But where I'm going with that is that was the Black Belt. That was the cotton growing, the tobacco growing belt. From Mariana all the way east to Jacksonville. Outside of Miami and points further south, this is where most black people still live, actually. Now, the resistance and protests of the 50s and 60s led directly to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, when President Lyndon Johnson, a white Southerner from Texas, looked out at the nation and said, "We shall overcome." That was presidential leadership. A man who tried to bring us together after coming out of one of the most racist parts of the country. I was a boy then, but I remember those days fondly, and I look at this man in the White House today and said, how did we go from here to here? Yeah, but that's aside, that's not part of the speech. Now, I can overestimate the importance of the Voting Rights Act. It required state and local governments, including some Florida counties, with a history of discriminatory voting practices, to go through a federal approval process called pre-clearance before changing any election laws or procedures. Now, the Supreme Court unfortunately overturned this in 2013, ruling that the formula used to determine what places needed pre-clearance was unconstitutional because it was based, in their opinion, on old censuses from the 60s and 70s. What this did was akin to when Rutherford B. Hayes took the black troops out of the South during Reconstruction. Now, Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act also prohibits governments from imposing election procedures or practices that would deny or restrict the right of U.S. citizens to vote based on race or color. Now, some of these tests were unbelievable. I'm sure you heard the ones, how many bubbles, or a bar of soap or whatever, or who was, George Washington's mother's name. I mean, come on. Say again?
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans, yes, the jelly bean test. What was that about?
How many jelly beans
Are in the jar.
Yeah,
Filled to the top.
exactly. Now, as a result of the Voting Rights Act, all of that changed, and we began electing people who represented us. Can you all still hear me? Okay. All righty. Now, the fruits of equal access were soon apparent. I mean, right here where we live, the local African American History Museum is located in a house that belonged to Fannie Ayer Ponder, an associate of Mary McLeod Bethune. You all know she helped start Bethune-Cookman College. Ponder created a local branch of the National Council of Negro Women. That was basically the black legal women voters at the time. What they did was raise cultural awareness and also organize voting campaigns. Well, there's James B. Sanderlin. I don't know if you remember him, but yeah, Mr. Sanderlin in 1964 led a group of homeowners who wanted to move where white people lived. He was successful in challenging segregationist practices in the housing industry, and that led directly to Hillsborough and Sarasota County promulgating integration in workplaces, in schools, and in homes. Then there's a guy I remember, Doug Jameson. Does that ring a bell at all? Yeah, I remember Doug when, again, I was a reporter. He started here, like in the poorest section of St. Pete, because of equal access. He was able to go to a good college, became involved in politics, and later became the education commissioner of the state. The state of Florida believed that. From Cindy Johnson Katz to an era when black people became elected officials. I'll tell you, this is a long speech, so wake up, and I've got a lot more. That's when the Voting Rights Act was signed. Now, here we are. Those doors are being closed today. The politics of white supremacy, they're woven into the DNA of Florida and our country. Civil rights are voting rights, in that taxation without representation is tyranny. Yet despite 100 years of separation between Sidney Johnson Katz and this man, racism means we're still playing the same old game, except that instead of bloody streets, now we're dealing with crooked lines. How crooked? This is the redistricting in what's that? 2022. This received a grade of F for fairness. Now, the League of Women Voters was actively involved in a movement to create what they called fair voting practices. What that meant was when you redistricted, you had to take into account things like contiguity. What that means is the neighborhood has its own integrity. You had to try to apportion so that people had a vote. What that means is black communities suddenly were empowered. That changed under DeSantis. What DeSantis decided to do was wipe out Democrats, which basically means the black vote. This is his statewide redistricting effort. And if you see, this is the odd part. This is the black belt. You wouldn't know it, would you? Yeah. That was Al Lawson's seat. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, let's talk about where we are right now. Contiguity. That was Tampa. Hey, you know where we are in here, right? Yeah, right now, we're sort of right there somewhere. You know, what they did was smash this district so that you had to go across the bay to get to the rest of it. This is called cracking and stacking. What you do is like crack up a black community, blow it wide open, then take the constituent pieces and put them in districts where they're minorities. If you look at a map of Tennessee, probably the best example, Memphis used to be just an integral center of the state. But a week after, the Supreme Court made their ruling, they blew it up. Right now, Memphis on a political map looks like a wheel with spokes going out. The black guy who used to represent that area, Justin Pearson, he won the primary the other night, but he's a 22-point underdog. because of the way those districts were redrawn. Now, I'll tell you something funny. Sometimes you like slap somebody and they slap you back even harder. When these district lines were created, Trump expected his boys to come back. But one of his boys, Andy Ogles, got his butt kicked in those elections. Now, what I anticipate is that this redistricting is going to blow up nationally in the faces of Republicans. You had 20% of eligible black voters in Memphis turn out, which isn't that great, but it's a lot higher than it used to be because they were mad. And I think there are people, not only black people, but right-thinking white people across this country. They're going to show Trump and DeSantis this redistricting is not going to stop us. Now let's talk about Al Lawson. I knew Al up in Tallahassee. Al was a basketball star at Florida A&M. He went on to the state legislature where he served for about 11 years. Then he won election to the old 5th District. The 5th District, again, was slave territory. It went from Mariana all the way over to Jacksonville, and it belonged to Al. Until, that's his district right there, the old 5th. Until DeSantis decided to do something about it. He lost his district in 2022. It's still being litigated, but usually judges never reverse, or almost never reverse, a legislature's redistricting efforts. So we lost our seat. That's gone. Yeah, a little humor now and then won't hurt. The maps I showed you earlier pack black people into 3 areas now. One is on the west coast, of course, around us here. The others are down in the southeast corner of the state, around Miami. That's where black voting power has been segregated, but that doesn't mean that's where it has to be. I think if we all get out, not only blacks, but white people and right-thinking people, we can reverse these maps. Now, these maps violate Florida law and modern practice. Through a series of lawsuits, the League of Women Voters and other concerned about good government created in 2010 something called the Fair Districts Amendment, which went to the voters of the state and passed. And it guaranteed that things I just showed you wouldn't happen. Well, you see how much that works, right? Yeah, a lot of it is us having to get out there. This is a repression of voters in the state of Florida in 2022, said Ellen Frieden. She was leader of the Fair Districts Now, the organizing party that presented the Fair District Amendments. But here's how the governor's lawyer defends his redistricting efforts. After a 2-week trial, plaintiffs have failed to marshal the necessary evidence to overcome the presumption of good faith to which the enacted map is entitled, wrote attorney Mohammed Jazil on behalf of Florida. Now, what's interesting in this is the same argument that Samuel Alito of the Supreme Court used, where what he said was, we have to prove that there's an intention. How do you prove intent? How do you prove intent? I've got these pictures on the wall because they speak to another problem that we're having here, and that's returning citizens. Florida passed a law giving felons the right to vote after they went through a certain process. But that's not exactly what happened. DeSantis decided to reverse that process, and early one morning in 2022, DeSantis had local and state police wake up people under arrest for voting illegally. These are some of the people that were arrested. Now, the 20 people who were arrested, despite their prior convictions, were able to register to vote. They believed that they could legally cast ballots, and every one of them said that. Part of the confusion comes from the language in the voter registration forms that requires people to swear that they are not a felon, or if they are, that they have had their rights restored. The forms do not specifically inquire about past convictions for murder or felony sexual assault. Anyway, in one of the body cam videos of the arrest, Nathan Art, convicted of a felony molestation charge in 2006, told the police that people at the driver registration bureau said I could vote. So I did. And you know how if you go get your driver's license, yeah. So he thought he was a citizen again until Ron DeSantis told him, no, you're not. There's your defense. That's what the officer told him. That sounds like a loophole to me. In another video obtained by the Tampa Bay Times, Tony Batterson expressed continued confusion about why he was being arrested, telling an officer, I thought felons were able to vote. Why would you let me vote if I weren't able to vote? None of these people were convicted, but the deed was done. If you are a returning citizen, wouldn't the arrest have a chilling effect on you deciding whether to vote? Oh no, I'd be embarrassed, and people in the street would wonder what they doing here today, but that's where we are. Now, in our day and time, the assault on voting rights continues. Our president seeks to limit the franchise, employing many of the same tools our governor has been using right here in Florida. After President Trump called for states with Republican legislative or gubernatorial power to redistrict in favor of party power, Florida complied. Under Governor Ron DeSantis, the legislature gerrymandered the state's congressional map as part of a broader national effort between red and blue states to gain an advantage in the 2026 election. In 2024, Florida's congressional delegation included 20 Republicans and 8 Democrats. Republicans are seeking to flip 3 of those 8 seats and turn them into Republican. They're looking in the Tampa Bay area, Greater Orlando, and the Miami metropolitan area, which returned 1, 2, and 5 Democrats to the Congress, respectively. The new map was signed by DeSantis on May the 4th, 2026, following a special legislative session. Now, what's important about that day, May the 4th, 2026, that's the same day when the Supreme Court announced their Louisiana versus Calais decision. Now, that decision gutted the Voting Rights Act, destroyed it completely. This is where black people live in the United States. Now, this is the Deep South slavery territory where there's a whole lot of us. Tanya, you showed me the book by James Clyburn from South Carolina. Oh, that's an awful state. And incidentally, that's from the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That's when the state police in Alabama just beat the hell out of black people for registering to vote, protesting the fact that they couldn't vote. Wrong one. Hold on a moment. According to the Florida Phoenix, and this sort of scares me, Ron DeSantis knew what the Supreme Court vote would be before he got the legislature to pass this current redistricting map. In other words, this is a plan, folks. And while we're barbecuing or hanging out or doing something, these guys are working. Think about the fact that at 2 o'clock in the morning last night, they approved Todd Blanche while we were sleeping. The SAVE Act proposed by the president would mandate documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. Women whose current identification doesn't match their birth certificate, for example, if you got married, would need to provide additional documentation like marriage certificates, which to me is a step back. You know, my wife belongs to me. I belong to this man. That's insane. The added paperwork requirement would mean that voters whose identification, such as a driver's license, doesn't explicitly prove citizenship, even if they are citizens, would have to bring supplemental documents, like your birth certificate. All of these conditions are loopholes that could be used by the wrong side to stop you from ever getting a chance to vote. Now, I'd like you to contrast that with a little-known piece of legislation that's been floating around Tallahassee for 3 years, the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Florida Voting Rights Act. If you recall, Harry Moore and his wife were blown up in 1951 by a segregationist. If passed, that Florida Voting Rights Act would make the Sunshine State. Okay. If passed, you can tell when I start to fall asleep, that happens. Okay. Contrast that with the Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore Florida Voting Rights Act. That act would make Florida one of the most voter-friendly states in the Union. It would ensure that voter registration and participation are accessible, transparent, and secure before, during, and after Election Day. The key provisions of the bill would include automatic registration for eligible Floridians. When you change your driver's license or go to get a driver's license, they'll also sign you up to vote. A centralized state, not federal, state database for returning citizens so that these poor guys that got arrested, they'll be in the system as eligible to vote. Permanent vote by mail requests. Right now, and in order to stem the vote and control the vote, our president wants to kill mail-in voting, even though he does it. Yeah. Expanded language access. If you're a citizen, but you don't really know the language, that shouldn't be a liability. I know some right-wingers say learn the language and get out, but it takes time. It took me 70 years to learn English. I'm still trying, but yeah. It allows eligible voters to register at any time, up to and including Election Day itself. Now, I'll close with a mention of the Harry T. Moore bill because it's such a stark contrast, like dark and light, or good and evil, to the restrictive SAVE Act of the president and Florida's gerrymandered districts. It's inclusive legislation designed to broaden the sphere, to bring people into voting if you're eligible to vote. But see, we can't sit around and wait for good things like this to come. Harry T. Moore's example alone, he was murdered, points to why we have to fight for the good things of value, like our right to vote. I tell you guys, democracy right now is in an existential fight for survival. Bob Marley sang his redemption song, which preached that we have it within ourselves to claim our destiny and deny the past disenfranchisement. Break the chains of mental slavery. Emancipate your mind, then emancipate your neighbor, then emancipate your community. Or to quote that great scholar of Western philosophy, James Brown, get up off of that thing and turn it loose. That's right, get out there. And that's what we're gonna have to do. Hold a sign, join a protest, write postcards, make phone calls, or just run your mouth like me. But do something to get out there. There are so many ways we all could do something to reverse our sad history of political disenfranchisement. You know, I can't boil the ocean, and neither can you. But if we make our little parts of the big water hot, we can make the oceans roar with righteous indignation. Get out there and vote, and I thank you for having me.
Do you have time for questions?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a microphone. Give people around. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Very knowledgeable, very talented. And I'm thinking we really need to motivate people about the issues in voter changes
Yes.
and prevent. We haven't really talked as much about that as we probably could. So, all right, that's enough for me. Questions?
Real, okay, so when you say get the voter out,
Hang on.
all right, sorry. When you say get the vote out, and you're saying make phone calls, postcards, bring your neighbors, can I add something to that?
Please.
Open up your home to one-on-ones. Get to know your neighbors. Bring those people in so that they learn and see the candidates, because if you see and talk to them, they'll vote for them.
You're right about that.
So phone calls are great, but they're not that effective. Postcards are okay. One-on-one is 100% or 99%.
It's so much better. I just want to interject really quickly. Tanya also told me about the League of Women Voters site. That's a great place. We could go get everything you need. All the resources are there. They even have video for slow people like me. So be sure to check that out. Next question, please.
Thank you for a great presentation.
You're
The
welcome.
history that I've learned today, I have a question on the turpentine farmers. Were they all prisoners or slaves?
They were convicts, and
All convicts?
yes. Yeah,
the-
one of
and-
the short-sighted areas of the 13th Amendment was that slavery could only be used for penal servitude. And so people took advantage of that to practically enslave these guys with a prison sentence. It's like even a day. You can make a quarter a day working in a prison, doing something. That's involuntary servitude.
Right.
And even though they tell you you don't have to do it, you can say no. You know what happens if you say no in prison.
And
Yeah.
the reason I asked that question is because I guess most of us knew about the cotton fields being a money-making, but turpentine. And as I was researching my family history, I came across a family member that worked turpentine, but I didn't know it was related to him or her being a prisoner. Is that the
Yeah,
right
what
term?
they call the chain gang. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the chain gang, yes. And you don't read about that history.
It's
So
a
thank
shameful period.
Thank you for that revelation today.
Well, you're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Questions over here?
Yeah, that's something easy, please. But yeah.
In all of the history that you've researched for Florida over the past 100 years, what is the one story that keeps coming back to you over and over again that you can't get out of your head?
Near Tallahassee, there was a boys' home. And a boys' home. Near Tallahassee, there was a boys' home. Where if you were recalcitrant or if a judge didn't like you, you wound up there. And they did everything to those poor boys. And when they killed them, they bury them out back in unmarked graves that they're just digging up. And every time it just makes me stop when I think about that, how cruel people could be. They worked those boys, they were exploited, and nobody cared about them. Yeah, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about something that kind of marries your current job and African-American Black history. 3 Black authors have had their books denied publication after they already got their money, preliminary funds, for using AI. But in all the scope of all of the new publications, only the ones that are being pulled, is this a new kind of book banning that is starting at publishers rather than the grassroots of Moms for Liberty?
It's another barrier that's used to deny publication to some books. As a publisher myself, I sort of frown on AI, but it's
They
here to
didn't use
stay.
it, I don't think.
No.
I think that they, as Black authors,
The bad part about it, it's so easy to make a case of plagiarism, particularly when you're talking about certain periods of history that other people have written about. And so there's a good chance that these guys were accused of plagiarism using AI. Yeah, I don't know much more about the subject, but that's the importance of just basically documenting what young people call bringing receipts. That's right. Yeah. Did that
Question.
speak to you? Oh.
Is this on? It's for the camera. Okay. Hey. During the heightened years of suppression, what was the role of the church in advocating for the suppression, and what was the role of the church in fighting against the suppression?
That's a good question. Great question. And I have to tell you, it depends on the individual church. Yeah, overall, the Black church The black church didn't really support Martin Luther King. The black church and the NAACP didn't really support Harry Moore. So it's the individual churches, and that means individual pastors made decisions. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to go home.
Well, I want to tag on what my friend over here asked a question about the churches. And I don't know if it's too early to announce this, Ms. Landry? Okay. On September 27th, Mount Olive AME is having a presentation on restoring voter rights. And we are honored to be one of the first churches to move forward and do something about the churches becoming involved. And the League of Women Voters is a sponsor, and we will be emailing, passing out information, flyers on the event, September 27th at Mount Olive AME Church.
Send me one. Yeah.
Pastor James Vincent Williams is our pastor.
Okay.
And I will just add to that, Barbara, we'll have a representative from the Florida Restoration of Voting Rights speak.
Good.
It's Bill Glass, in case you've heard him speak before. He will be doing a presentation on restoration of voting rights. Very important issue before registration deadlines for the fall, the general election.
Can I say one thing?
September what? 27th. You'll have the information on our website. Okay. It'll be available on our website.
I just-
We need all the churches to be working
That's right.
For, if your church is a church, then you ought to be working on this,
Yes.
every one of them.
Yeah, and I do have one other comment about that. So we are, right now, the league is working on faith community outreach. So if you are in a faith community, we have some churches lined up already, Mount Olive, that we're going to be doing tabling and information. But if you are in a faith community, notice I said faith community, it doesn't have to be just a church, I'm talking about the faith community. If you're in a faith community, you want the league to come out, please contact me, and we will be happy to do that. We're doing this outreach to the faith community now, all the way through the general election.
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
want to add to that.
Mhm.
I just want to add to that.
Uh-huh.
That churches no longer have to be politically non-political. They can jump in and say what they want to say now.
Mm-hmm. Well,
It's,
I'd like to make
yeah.
our church, we're speaking nonpartisan.
No. I'm saying churches in general. That's
Okay.
an overall.
Okay.
They've been allowed to.
you
yeah.
know, part of that is what Governor DeSantis and Governor Rick Scott did. But they passed a series of laws that made it harder for nonpartisan groups to work with candidates or even get involved in election. Anybody remember Souls to the Polls?
Yes.
Yeah, that was, and that's gone. The League of Women Voters got out of the business of registering people for a while because of state laws, and so did the NAACP. And so when you say, yeah, we're back, and that's, I think, what you mean when you say churches are back, and churches want to get involved again, which is all good.
I just
Question
want to
in-
say one thing. If anybody was really wowed by this history, take yourself to Montgomery, Alabama, like I did and a couple of friends, and go to the Legacy Museum, and you will see more things that you cannot get out of your mind that could break me right down to tears right now. But it is, and the Monument Museum, we went there on the 4th of July. Instead of celebrating the 4th of July, we went to Montgomery. And if you want a moving, inspiring, and very historical trip, go up there and check it out. It is so worth it.
All right, thank you. Question in the back, then I'm going to get to you, ma'am.
Just wanted to echo what's been said. You know, the outreach that you're doing to the faith community is so important because the reason that people that develop Project 2025 and all the other people that are looking to suppress the vote want to make it so that I don't know anything about you, you don't know anything about me, and I see you as the other. And
Yes.
I'm afraid of you. And that's a bunch of baloney because they all think
so many people that look like me think, well, it's not my problem.
Yes.
You know what? It is, because they're focusing on one segment of the population today. It's gonna keep moving on until there's nobody left except those few.
Well,
1%
Tom Watson bid it well. They keep us apart so we could be fleeced separately. Yep. You have a question, ma'am?
This is going back to something you said in your presentation, and I just want to know your opinion on it. As brown and black people, do you think our distrust from the police comes from the way we were treated by the police, because they were part of the problem?
Well, the first police force were what they called paddy rollers. And these were poor white people who didn't have any slaves, but got a bounty or got paid to just ride around on roads looking for black people who looked like they didn't belong where they were. And so what I'm saying is this is organic, our distrust of police.
Right.
I remember as a boy, my mom, I'd go to school and learn about Officer Friendly. I'd come home, my mother said, stay away from me.
Right. And I just think it's hard for non-melanated people to understand why it's such a deep-seated relationship between us and law enforcement. And we act like it was so long ago. My mom left, but she didn't, I mean, she was in segregation all the way through high school.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't go to a white school until college.
Think about
so it's, people are still living today who experienced that type of abuse from law enforcement where it was justified.
One thing I want to say to that really quickly is, as we talk about the way black people were treated and what we have to do, we cannot ignore what's happening to our brown brothers right now. Right now, and they're being hunted, demonized, tracked down. My girlfriend and I ride with legal observers, and some of the things we saw, like heartbreaking. Let me go further. I was talking to a black woman the other day and saying, are you going to come out here for this protest? She said, that's white people's problem. And too many black people look at what's happening with ICE and say, that's brown people. It's all of our problems. It's all of our problems. When we needed help, we're a minority in this country. And whatever advances we got by teaming with the majority. Now there's another minority getting hurt. We can't sit still. They think I'm crazy. I'm the only black man out there running with them, but I do that because I know they're going to come for me next. So just a quick plea. Remember our brown brothers right now, because they're getting hurt. Yes.
Last
Yeah,
question.
just to make that point a little, just last night, there was ICE in Fort Myers, and they're working with the sheriffs. So the sheriffs are pulling people over just for textual traffic stops because there's brown people in the town.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, one person got afraid and tried to run from them. They're thinking by the videos, and they had to call an ambulance on this guy, they're thinking they broke his back right there, just for running from that danger. Because they're dangerous.
Yeah.
They're very dangerous.
Yeah, they're
Even
creating.
the observers, they're threatening.
Yeah,
Like, you know.
they're creating a paramilitary force in this country. Yeah, I mean, think about that. There are more ICE agents than there are U.S. Marines, which should scare the hell out of you.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only thing is, I was talking with another person that's heavily involved, and she said, well, at least people in the neighborhood actually came out and, you know, made it known that they were watching and, you know, so.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you so much, James.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. This was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Very nice to meet you.
Okay.
Thank you all. No one leave, because we have some evaluation forms we'd like for you to complete. And
me,
as
sir.
I said before, make sure you keep check of our website. Make sure your circle of friends knows about vote411.org. And make sure that your circle of friends knows there will be distractions, there will be chaos, but you will vote. Thank you so
Yes.
much for coming out today.